Someone near you yawns. You did not plan to react. You were not even thinking about it. But a few seconds later, your own jaw stretches open, your eyes water slightly, and you yawn too. You did not choose this. Your body simply followed along, as if it had no say in the matter. Most people call this funny, a quirky little glitch in human behavior. But the real answer is far stranger and far older than anyone tells you at parties. To understand why yawning spreads from person to person like a whispered signal, you have to stop thinking of it as a joke and start thinking of it as a message, because that is exactly what it is, a message written into your body long before language existed, and one your brain still cannot help but read. Start with the obvious question: why do you yawn at all? For decades, the popular explanation was that yawning brings more oxygen into the blood. It sounds reasonable. It is also wrong. Researchers have tested this directly. In a study led by psychologist Robert Provine, one of the most prominent yawning researchers alive, participants breathed in different mixtures of air, including air with extra oxygen and air with extra carbon dioxide. If oxygen were the trigger, changing the air should have changed how often people yawned. It did not. Yawning frequency stayed almost exactly the same no matter what was in the air. Something else was driving it. That something else appears to be temperature. More specifically, brain temperature. Researchers including Andrew Gallup have proposed that yawning functions as a kind of thermal reset button. Your brain runs best within a narrow temperature range, and a wide, deep yawn pulls in a rush of cooler air while stretching the muscles around your skull, increasing blood flow and helping to cool the brain down. In experiments, people yawned more often when their foreheads were warmer and yawned less when a cool pack was pressed to their head beforehand. Your brain, in other words, yawns to keep itself running efficiently. It is less like a sigh of boredom and more like a tiny internal fan switching on. That explains why you yawn. It does not explain why you yawn when someone else does, and this is where the story turns unsettling. Contagious yawning is not universal across all animals. It shows up reliably in a small specific group: humans, chimpanzees, dogs, wolves, elephants. Notice something these animals share. Every one of them lives or evolved to live in tightly bonded social groups where survival depended on cooperation. Contagious yawning does not appear randomly across the animal kingdom. It clusters almost precisely around species that depend on each other to stay alive. This is not a coincidence. In a widely cited study, researchers observed that people are far more likely to catch a yawn from someone they know well, a close friend or family member, than from a stranger. Acquaintances triggered yawning less often. Strangers triggered it the least of all. The pattern held up again and again. The closer your social bond to someone, the more likely their yawn becomes yours. Why would evolution wire your brain to synchronize something as small as a yawn based on how emotionally close you are to another person? The leading explanation involves a part of your brain most people have never consciously thought about: mirror neurons. These are brain cells that activate both when you perform an action and when you simply watch someone else perform it. When you see a friend wince in pain, mirror neurons fire as though you felt the pain yourself. When you see a friend yawn, the same system may be quietly synchronizing your body with theirs, without asking your permission first. Some researchers argue this points to something even deeper than mimicry. It points to empathy itself, running on autopilot. Neuroscientist Elizabeth Cerulli found a striking connection between contagious yawning and empathetic ability. In her research, people who scored higher on empathy tests were significantly more likely to catch a yawn from another person. Children under the age of 4, whose empathetic reasoning is still developing, rarely catch yawns at all. Individuals on parts of the autism spectrum, where social and emotional mirroring can present differently, also show reduced rates of contagious yawning in several studies. The pattern suggests that a yawn spreading across a room is not simple imitation. It may be your brain's empathy system announcing itself in the most mundane possible way. Now picture what this meant for your ancient ancestors, long before phones, long before cities, long before written language of any kind. Small groups of early humans slept together in exposed, vulnerable conditions. Predators moved at night. A group that fell asleep at wildly different times, with some members alert while others were groggy and unfocused, was a group with gaps in its defenses. But if one tired member's yawn could ripple through the group and nudge everyone else's internal clock into sync, the whole tribe could drift toward rest and toward alertness together. A yawn moving silently from person to person may have functioned as a primitive, wordless signal, something closer to "it is time to lower our guard together," or "it is time to raise it together," than anyone realized. This reframes the entire behavior. That yawn spreading across a quiet room is not a random twitch. It may be the faint, surviving echo of an ancient synchronization system, one that once helped a vulnerable group of humans rest and wake as a single unit, backs turned outward, watching the dark together. There is one more detail that makes this even stranger. Studies using thermal imaging have found that yawns are sometimes preceded by a small spike in facial temperature, particularly around the nose and forehead, appearing just before the yawn itself begins. Some researchers interpret this as an early physiological signal, present in the body slightly before the conscious urge to yawn even registers. If that is accurate, it means the contagious yawn you just caught did not start with a decision at all. Your body may have already begun responding to someone else's state before you were aware anything was happening. So the next time you feel that pull in your jaw because someone near you yawned, you are not simply mimicking a stranger's habit. You may be catching a signal your ancestors depended on to survive the night, a message that skips language entirely, a message that your body still answers every single time, whether you want it to or not. Someone near you yawns, and somewhere beneath conscious thought, your body has already begun to answer, not because you chose to, because for nearly all of human history, staying in sync with the people around you was never a courtesy, it was survival.